thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm Brian Powers. I'm one of the counselors here. It's kind of weird because I appreciate you all, I guess, being patient with the seating, because the last time that I did this, like before COVID, when there was no restrictions or anything, I don't really remember how many people were in here, and so I just kind of set it up how we had in the past, and so also they were set up a little differently, and I didn't get in here until 5:15, to be completely honest with you, but so I appreciate your patience with that. With that being said, we have with us tonight Melissa from InvestEd Indiana, which is one of our partners, great partners that we work with. They help us out here tonight. They'll also be back on September 14th for our senior financial aid night. So if you have a senior, know a senior, or when you do have seniors, it will be for that night, and it will be very informative, just kind of getting you started on that process, what you need to do, how that starts, and what to look forward to. We also have a FAFSA completion night for those of you, for the seniors. Once October rolls around, when they'll start being able to fill out the FAFSA, and they'll come in and help us out with that as well. So she's going to talk a little bit about what to expect coming up. I know we've got all kinds of grades in here, but it's never too early to get prepared for that. So I appreciate you coming out. I got a new toy today. This is it's a little like, so I made. No one really cares, but I'm going to tell you anyways. I majored in broadcast journalism in undergrad, and so I really like doing that. And so I've said that I want to do more videos and stuff for our Franklin, for our FCHS Twitter, for the guidance Twitter and Instagram accounts. And so I made the school buy me this. I may also take videos of my daughter playing soccer and stuff with this, but don't tell anyone. But this is the first day getting it, so I kind of wanted to get some video while I walk around, and then I'll post it on our Twitter and Instagram pages, FCHS Guidance, if you want to give us a follow. And just kind of a recap of what we had today, because we had a couple of things going on, so just putting that on there as well. So try not to look at me. If you look at me, I'll cut you, because I don't need people staring at me in the videos. We can't break that wall. So with that, Melissa.
All right. So yes, my name is Melissa Rangel. I'm with InvestEd Indiana. So I know there's some people that came in while we were talking. There's some stuff up here on the front table to grab. Lots of good information to have. I'm going to be referencing the guide, which is the big glossy thing. It pretty much goes hand in hand with my presentation today, so that's a really nice thing to have with you as we go through. If you realize you have some questions, you can obviously stop me in the middle of the presentation. That's totally fine. But if you want to circle something, dog ear something, right, that might be a good thing to do. So make sure you grab the materials. Just come on up again. So yes, I'm with InvestEd Indiana. We are a not-for-profit based out of Carmel, Indiana. I'm actually local. I live in Greenwood, so it was not a far drive for me today. But we help any Hoosier figure out education after high school. So whether that is a apprenticeship, an internship, a 2-year degree, 4-year degree. I'm going to be saying the word college a lot, but when I say college, I'm talking about all of it, right? So all of the options there after high school, not just strictly like your 4-year degree. So when I say that word, that's what I'm talking about. So let's look a little bit about what we're going to be discussing today. So we're going to talk about the benefits of continuing your education after high school. We'll talk about choosing a career path and then finding a program that matches that career path. We'll touch on the types of financial aid and a little bit about the FAFSA. We'll talk about managing college costs, and then finally the impact of social media. Okay, just so I know, how many are freshmen in here? Okay, how many sophomores? Juniors? Any seniors?
Not me.
Okay, all right, just so I know who I was talking to. Okay, all right, let's talk about continuing your education. And this is on, I think, page 3, page 4, somewhere in the guide. So this chart, right, you may have heard the statistic that a college graduate will earn $1 million more in their lifetime than a high school graduate. Here's our proof. So on the bottom line, you can see the level of education starting with less than high school, going all the way to a doctoral professional degree. That yellow bar is your median weekly earning, like what you're going to be bringing home per week. And then the blue line is unemployment rate. So, very simply, the more you learn, the more you earn, right? Also, less likely to be unemployed with more education. So, just proof, right, that continuing education has a lot of benefits, but also just like finances-wise, it has a lot of benefits there too. So just a quick little chart there. Some statistics. 70% of graduates have college-related debt. I'm sure I'm talking to a room of people that maybe have had college-related debt. I have college-related debt, right? It's a pretty common thing. However, 50% of people are surprised by what they owe. So when you get to the end of your college program, you do this thing, especially if you take out loans, you do a thing called exit counseling, which tells you exactly how much money you're going to have to pay back. 50% of people are shocked by that number. That's an issue. We want to make sure that you know exactly how much money you're taking out, what money you're going to have to pay back, all of that information, so then you're not blindsided after you finish that degree. So as far as the United States, our student loan debt average per person is about $37,667, right? That's about a $460 monthly payment to pay back that loan, okay? Those are numbers that we want to think about, especially when we're thinking about a career and thinking about a salary, right? Because we want to make sure that we're going to be able to pay for all our bills, our mortgage, our rent, what have you, but also pay back our loans. And then finally, a little trivia. I want to see what we know. Student loan debt exceeds credit card debt in the United States. There's been some news lately about loans. Anyone know how much student loan debt we have in the United States? More. Any guesses? I heard 5 billion. It's more than that. Yeah?
4 quadrillion.
No. So, $1.7 trillion with a T. 1.7 trillion. Right? That's how much student loan debt we have in the United States right now. It's a number that's like mind-boggling. We can't even really wrap our mind around it, how much money that is. So, student loan debt is not entirely uncommon. So first off, we've got to talk about finding a career. So maybe there's some students in the room that know exactly what they want to do after high school, right? I was one of those people that knew what they wanted to do. But maybe we have some students in the room that don't know, and that's totally okay. So I'm going to give you some tips on figuring out that career process. First of all, you want to think about your interests and your strengths. What are you really good at? What do you like to do in your free time? Those things can lend itself to a career. And then thinking about your goals. Where do you want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20? And I'm not talking about like physically where do you want to be, although that could be part of it, but where do you see yourself in life, right? Those goals can lend itself to figuring out what kind of career you want to go towards. There are some ways you can gain experience with this. So first of all, job shadowing. Maybe you have a student that's like, I want to cut hair. Have them job shadow a hairdresser. It's going to be a little bit more than just cutting hair. It's managing a business, it's interacting with clientele, it's emails, it's marketing, it's balancing a checkbook. All of those things, right? To make sure they fully understand what they're getting into there. Volunteering is not only a great way to give back to our community, but also it's a great way to explore some careers. Maybe your student volunteers at the veterinary or the Humane Society, right? And they might decide, oh, I want to go into veterinary sciences. Right? That could be a way to figure out a career. And then finally, internships. Internships are not as common in high school, a little bit more common in college, but they're a great way for your student to experience the workforce, for the workforce to experience them, and then bonus, sometimes they're paid. So it's a good way, right, to get some experience there. So now I have a little tool. This one's actually not in our guide, so if you want to write down the website, I suggest it, or take a picture of the screen. So this one is called mynextmove.org. That's the website, mynextmove.org. So this website has some really great ways to figure out a career, and I'm going to kind of take you through it. So broken up into 3 categories, right? The first column, the I want to be. This is for those that know exactly what they want to do. So maybe your student wants to be a neurosurgeon, right? We type in neurosurgeon, and it's going to tell us all the things about a neurosurgeon. We're going to look at a job page in the next slide. Maybe I'll know it when I see it. Maybe you know, like, I want to go into construction, but I don't know exactly what I want to do in construction. So if you type in construction, it's going to show you all the different things that you could do, whether it's welding, carpentry, plumbing, things like that. And then the next one, I'm not really sure. This one's a little quiz. This is a 60-question quiz. It sounds like a lot. I promise it's not. I did it a couple months ago. But what it's going to do is it's going to gauge your interests, your strengths, things like that, and then it's going to spit out some jobs that might fit those things that you just answered. So like I said, I did it. It told me I was good at teaching and helping others. So I was like, okay, good. I also suggest, even if you think you know what you want to do, take the quiz and see if it matches up. It's kind of a fun activity there. So once you get through and find a career, this is what it shows you. So this is for computer system analysis, right? The nice thing is that they show you what they do in kind of a general sense. They'll show you what you might do on the job. They'll show you what type of education you may need to do that, plus the job outlook, like how likely is that job to exist in the future. In this case, average. I also show you a median salary. And again, when we're thinking about our bills in the long run, like our loan payments, our mortgage or rent or whatever, right, we want to make sure our salary is going to be able to match that. In this case, $99,000 ain't bad. And then finally, maybe you're looking at computer system analysis and you're like, not for me. The website will give you some options that are sort of similar to that position that may be interesting to you, a little bit more interesting to you. So mynextmove.org is a really great tool to kind of figure out where we want to go next. So this one is on your guide. This one is called Indiana Next Level Jobs. So this is a program run by the state. The way it works is that Indiana has identified these 5 fields as we need people in these fields now, right? So we have advanced manufacturing, building and construction, health and life sciences, IT and business services, transportation and logistics. So construction, we kind of threw out some of those already, like the welding, the carpentry, things like that. Health and life sciences could be dental hygienists, massage therapists. IT and business services, a lot of like security right now is really big on the forefront. So the way the program works, if you are over 18 and you don't have a 2-year or a 4-year degree already, you can apply for Indiana Next Level Jobs, and the way it works is they will pay for your certification to get into those fields, right? So it's more of a 9-month certificate, 11-month certificate. It's not a 2-year or 4-year degree. But if you're thinking about going into one of these fields, this could be an option as far as getting that education paid for and getting into the job force sooner rather than later, right? So that's a really good option, Indiana Next Level Jobs. It's a great program. Sort of similar is Indiana In-Demand Jobs. So the way this works is, again, they've gone through and they've identified fields that we need people in now. They've noted it with the little fire symbol, like how much we need them. The way it is it's a big long list of all these careers. It tells you where you can find jobs, what kind of education you need, the type of salary you may earn, and even potentially find some training there. Again, just a good way to kind of browse some options, especially for what we need in Indiana right now, and a good way to find jobs that will fill sooner rather than later. So that's Indiana In-Demand Jobs. All right, once we find our career, now we have to find a program to match it. So again, a couple things, again, if you want to take a picture or write them down, a couple things to use as far as searching into your colleges and your universities. 2 tools, College Navigator and College Scorecard. These are for actually searching up the programs and schools. So if you want to look into IU, Purdue, Ball State, whatever university, even universities outside of Indiana, right, you can look them up and they're going to tell you a ton of information. So they'll tell you how much it costs to go there. They'll tell you admissions rate and what they're looking for in admissions. It'll tell you retention rates, like how likely students are to return for the next year. Maybe you're going to be living on campus and campus security is a concern for you. So lots of information here. So College Navigator, it's its own private thing. College Scorecard is actually from the U.S. Department of Education. They're very similar information, just in 2 different websites. My tip here is that if your student is going to go on a college visit or go to a college fair, talk to a college admissions rep, do a little research beforehand, right? Have some information in your back pocket so when you're talking to that person, you can kind of prove to them, I know what I'm talking about, and maybe even prepare some questions, right? Preparing questions shows that you did research and you're thinking about the long term here, and it's a really good impression to make on college rep admissions quickly. So, College Navigator, College Scorecard, 2 really great ways to do that. Okay, so at MSN, we say you have to find the right fit. This is also in your guide. So, with the right fit, we say there's 3 categories. There's academically, there's socially, and there's financially. I'm going to tell you a little story about how I figured out what school I wanted to go to through my 3 columns here. So, when I was a senior in high school, I could not decide where I wanted to go to. I was going between 2 schools. I was going between a public, rural, large school and a small, private city school. 2 opposites, right? And I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, so I had to evaluate. So first, academically, you want to make sure the school you go to offers the program or major for your career path. Kind of sounds like a no-duh. Make sure it's offering the program you're looking for. But also, make sure it has good placement rates. The program that I went through had a 99% placement rate, meaning I was going to get a job after graduation, and I did. The middle one, opportunities for experiences like internships and practicum. So you want to make sure you get into your field as soon as possible to really make sure that's what you want to do. And with my program, I was in the field that first month, that first semester of my freshman year, and then continually the rest of the 4 years. And that was a really good experience for me. And then finally, study a broader intercultural experiences. If your student is interested in studying in another country, You want to make sure that program has that. I've had friends that studied in China, in Peru, in Turkey, and all sorts of places. I did a little bit of it. I studied for 2 weeks in England. I studied Shakespeare. I went to 6 plays, saw his birthplace, saw his grave, the whole thing, right? And that was a really cool experience for me. So if that's something that's interesting to you, make sure the program offers that as well. So my program was a good fit academically. Check. All right, socially. You want to make sure you feel part of the community, and we're talking about all parts of the community. So like I said, my 2 schools I was thinking about were completely different from each other, and I had to decide if I wanted to go to a large rural school or a small private school. Eventually I decided on a small private. Both of them have benefits, both of them have cons. What I really liked was that it was a small campus. I could walk across campus in 15 minutes. If you go to a Purdue IU, can't really do that, right? So you want to make sure that you feel at home with the facilities there. Then the next one, professional and personal and networking opportunities. With my program that I went through, I had really good connections with my community there, and I'm still friends with some of my professors, like go to their house, like talk to them still, right? And that's really good for networking, especially after college when your student may be looking for a job or a career change or something like that. And then finally, housing options. This is something to think of, especially when we're talking about money, because later on we're going to talk about how much it costs room and board, right? You want to know how much time you're going to be spending living on campus. Most public universities say you have to live on campus that first year and then off campus the other 3. My university, I had to live on campus for 3 years and then off campus 1, right? So that's a difference of quite a bit of money. So we want to make sure we're comfortable with housing options. The other thing I like to point out here is Greek life, right? If your student is interested in Greek life and potentially living in a Greek house, right, make sure that's an option as well. So eventually my school fit socially. And now financially. We like to say if it does not fit financially, it's not going to fit the other 2 probably, right? Financially is a very important column. You got to make sure that program or school is affordable. Notre Dame, great school, $60,000 a year, right? Cool if you can swing Notre Dame for the first year. If you can't do it the other 3, that might be a problem, right? So make sure you can afford it the entire time. The potential debt is manageable once the degree or certification is obtained. So again, I'm going to use Notre Dame as an example, but again, very good school. If you know that you're going to go into a career that maybe doesn't make a ton of money, but you're going to a school like Notre Dame that's $60,000 a year for 4 years, you're probably going to have a lot of debt and not a very large salary to help you with the loan payments, right? So you want to make sure that your loan payment is manageable after you go to that school, right, and not putting yourself into so much debt and having trouble with that monthly payment. And then finally, ongoing scholarship opportunities. This is where people make a lot of mistakes. They look like their junior, senior year of high school, and then they stop. You want to be looking for scholarships the entire time, the entire length of the program, right? So not just junior, senior year, but also the 4 years or 2 years or however long you're in the program, looking for those scholarships. Especially when you declare a major in college and know exactly where the route you're going to go, more scholarships might open up to you. So keeping a lookout for scholarships. By the time I graduated, I had like 7 or 8 of them that I accumulated over my time there. So eventually my school was a good fit for me as well, financially. So, some things to note. Changing majors, changing programs, changing schools, right? This can kind of throw off your trajectory. 80% of people change their major at least once, right? It's common. You get there, you take some classes, you realize like, oh, this is not for me. It's okay, right? However, if you are changing your major at your school like every month, every semester, that's a problem, right? You're going to be adding on time, you're going to be adding on money, you may run out of money, right? So we want to make sure we're kind of like keeping track of that and not doing it too late into the program, because then you're going to really set off your years. So, speaking of timing, let's talk about timing. Bless you. So, with the state of Indiana, incentivizes students to finish on time. We're going to talk about on time versus full time. We're going to talk about on time first. So they incentivize students with on time by saying, we will give you this full amount of grant money, which is going to come up in the next couple slides. We'll give you this full amount of grant money if you finish on time. If you don't finish on time, we're going to not give you the full amount of money, right? So on time is 15 credit hours a semester for 30 credit hours a year. So for a 4-year degree, you have to have 120 credits. If you're doing 30 a year, that's 4 years, right? You want to think about credits. If you go to English 101, you go to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour each time. That's a 3 credit hour class. So 3 credit hour class for 15 credits. How many classes do you need? Simple math. 5. You need 5 classes, right? 5 classes a semester. So this may look a little different. Maybe you take an online course one time, maybe you take a summer course, right? But as long as you're getting the 30 for the whole year, then that's considered on time. And again, they incentivize you to finish on time to get that full amount of money that they said. So in comparison, universities say full-time is 12 credits. 12 credits is only 4 classes a semester, okay? And you can very easily see the difference here, right? Because if you do full-time, only 12 credit hours, you're adding on a whole other year to your education, okay? And then on top of that, you may not get the full amount of grant money. So we want to make sure that we're finishing on time rather than full-time, right? When you get to that potentially 5th year, you may run out of money, you may run out of financial aid, right? It could be a problem there. So making sure on time is better. Okay, let's talk about types of financial aid. There are 5 categories of financial aid. There is from the federal government, from the state government, from private businesses, from the college itself, and then from the student, the family themselves. They're broken into 2 categories further. So we have gift aid, which is the kind of money we like. It's the free money, the money we don't have to pay back. The gift aid is the grants and the scholarships, which we're going to talk about here. And then the self-help aid, this is savings that your family may have saved, student employment, loans. We're going to talk about all of these. So first, let's talk about grants. So grants are from either the federal or state government, and this is that free money, that money that we do not have to pay back. So all this money we're going to talk about is dependent on the FAFSA, which we're going to get to after we talk about all the money. So dependent on the FAFSA, just keep that in mind as we're talking through this. So through your FAFSA, through your information, you may get offered some grants. So we have some up here, the federal grants. The Pell Grant is in the news recently with the loan forgiveness program, the SEOG money, the Teach Grant, right? You may get some sort of money through that, those limits, right? You may not get the full amount, again, based on your FAFSA, your financials. The state grants, 21st Century Scholars. Do I have any 21st Century Scholars in here? Okay, so 21st Century Scholars is a program you sign up during 7th and 8th grade year. If you qualify for it and go through all the program through high school, it pays for tuition and regularly assessed fees at a public university. It's a really great program. It's one of the most talked about ones in Indiana. The Franco-Bannon grant is an Indiana grant, same with the workforce right grants. There are lots more state grants than just those 3. So if you're interested in looking at the whole list of grants, you can go to that website, investedindiana.org/grants. The thing here to think about, federal money can be used anywhere in the United States. Where's state money used? It's not a trick question. In the state, yeah. It has to stay in Indiana. So if you get state grants, right, that will have to go to a state college, some sort of Indiana school. Okay, just things to think about there. Now let's talk about scholarships. So scholarships are broken into 2 categories. We have need-based and we have merit-based. What do you think need-based is looking at? What do we need to go to school? Money. Yeah, need-based is looking at finances. Okay, how about merit-based? Grades, grades, GPA, test scores, even athletics. Okay, so need-based and merit-based. And then at InvestEd, we say we need to be looking at 3 levels of scholarships. So the first level is the free national search sites. So there's lots of different search sites out there. We have one on our website if that's a little bit easier for you to handle, right? They will tell you all sorts of information about scholarships. The thing is with national scholarships, if you could probably think about it, there is probably a scholarship for it, right? So there are scholarships for having red hair, for being left-handed, for being very short, for being very tall, for certain ethnicities and races, for whatever you can think about, there is probably a scholarship for it. The thing is, you gotta do the work. You gotta find it, right? So those national search sites are really good for finding those big scholarships out there, those maybe kind of weird scholarships out there that you could apply for. The second level at the college or university, this one again is tied with the FAFSA. When you file the FAFSA, right, the college or university will get your financial information. They'll also be getting your transcript from your student. And the college or university, based on either or both, may kick your student a scholarship as well. And again, when we talk about the FAFSA, I'll bring that up again. And then finally, at the local community level, your school counselors are your best bet at knowing local scholarships. I'm sure they have a big long list of them, right? So community foundations are like, businesses within the area, employers, parents. I would go out and look and see if your employer has a scholarship. Chances are, if they do, it's probably a smaller amount of people going after that money and better chances for your student to get it. And then church and civic organizations. The civic organizations, we call these the animal clubs, the moose, the lion, the elk, all those animals, right? Those are good places to look for scholarships as well, right? So lots of different levels of scholarships to find, right? Because they're out there. So some tips. Create a scholarship resume. Just like you would be applying for a job, create a little scholarship resume. Put your extracurriculars, your volunteers, your whatever hours you're spending doing an activity in order. Try to figure out how much time you spend towards it, because then it's going to make it a little bit easier to fill out those forms and even fill out college applications later on. Write a little sample essay. So, I used to be an English teacher. I'm going to be pro writing. But some scholarships ask you to write a little bit something, right? So in 250 words, describe why you deserve this money. In 500 to 600 words, tell a story that explains yourself, right? Those are nice little things to have in your back pocket, so when they show up, you can just kind of copy and paste. They're not all going to be like that, but it's a good place to start and have one on deck, right? You have to take time looking for scholarships. Students, you got to do your job of looking for them, right? Spend a little time each week, spend a little time every other week looking for scholarships on the big levels and the medium and the small levels, right? To make sure you're looking at all of your options. Make sure you're balancing your time between the big money and the small money, right? Coca-Cola has a $50,000 scholarship, and yeah, that'd be awesome, right? However, probably a lot more people going towards the Coca-Cola scholarship than someone going towards the $1,000 local scholarship, right? So spend your time going through both the big and the small money. Those small scholarships can add up pretty quickly, right? And take off quite a bit of money on the long run. Don't miss your deadlines. Don't miss out on money because you forgot to send it in, right? I know if I don't put it in my phone, it's gone forever, right? So put it in your phone, put it on a calendar, make a little sticky note, whatever you need to do to remind yourself of deadlines for scholarships. And then have a little fun with it. So I know this is super cheesy, but I promise it helps. Get together with some friends, set a timer for 30 minutes, and look for scholarships, right? Again, makes it much more enjoyable than just like sitting and doing it by yourself. You can also potentially find some scholarships that might fit a friend better than it fits you. You can have some time to kind of look over the little blurbs that you write, the 250 to 500 words, right? It can make the process that's maybe a little arduous a little bit more fun, right? Like I said, there's scholarships all out there. My favorite one is this duct tape one. I think it's called Stuck on You. But those outfits made for prom are made entirely out of duct tape. And they got money for that, right? Pretty much every fast food location has scholarships, especially if you work at the fast food location, right? They probably have scholarships for you. I know Starbucks, that if you work at Starbucks, they do tuition reimbursement, so they may pay for your classes, right? So, again, lots of scholarships out there. You just got to do the work and find them. A little plug for us. I know this is on our page too. I think it's page 7, maybe? At the bottom? Is that what it is? So, yeah. Okay, page 7. So, at the very bottom, we have a scholarship, and the website's on page 7, but this is the InvestEd scholarship. The qualifications are you have to be 16 and over and live in Indiana. That's it, right? It's probably the simplest scholarship you could apply for. It's your name and address. So, very easy to apply for. What we do starting in February, we're going to pull one name a month for 5 months and give $1,000. So, very simple. Highly suggest you go home and do that, right? And do it every year, starting at 16, right, through until you're done with your program. So, a little scholarship plug for us too. Okay. Now the self-help page. So there's lots of different ways to save for education, and maybe you're in a different place in the room than someone else is, and that's totally fine, okay? I'm just going to run through some options and some suggestions. So first of all, if your student is getting any sort of money from a birthday, a holiday, jobs around the house, whatever, right? Obviously, I know that some of that money is probably personal spending money, but putting some of that away, it doesn't have to be in a fancy account, right? Putting some of it away into a jar could be really good, right? Have some skin in the game, right? If they have a part-time job, again, I realize some of that's personal financing, but taking a part of that paycheck and putting it away, right? Saving it away for the future. Now, the 529 and the Covered L, these are savings accounts. At InvestEd, we're not necessarily financial planners, so if you're interested in the 529 or the Covered L, we highly suggest you talk with your financial planner. I will say, I benefited from 529. The nice thing about the 529, it does give you a tax credit, which is nice. The next thing is that you can change the beneficiary. So, I have 2 older sisters. They're 7 and 5 years older than me. So when we got to college, my dad could change the name on the 529, and all 3 of us benefited from the same account, right? So that's really nice, especially if you've got multiple kids. So again, if you're interested in the 529, the Coverdell, I would suggest talking with your financial planner about those. As far as student employment, there's been studies that show that students that are partially employed have better grades. Not to mention they're also earning money and potentially, decreasing that student loan cost in the long run. They're getting really great job and interview experience. They're building that time management experience. They're working for a boss, right? All those good skills that we need to have eventually when we go into the workforce. Some options. So the first one is called the Federal Work Study. So again, filing the FAFSA, you may qualify for the Federal Work Study, which how this works is that the college or university will offer your student a part-time job on campus, so maybe at the cafeteria or the library or what have you, right? And the payment for that comes off of their fees at the end, right? Their tuition, their fees, all those things, right? So it's a really nice way to be working part-time but also earning some money, right, afterwards. You also just work part-time off campus. I've known people that have done both, working off campus and also working part-time on campus, again, saving money. And then finally, the internships, we talked about these earlier, right? A good way to get experience in your field, but also if you find one that's paid, even better, right? So, good student employment. Okay, we're gonna talk briefly about the loans. So, this is where people get themselves in trouble, right? It's very easy to get overwhelmed about loans, right? And then just kind of panic and click buttons. Right, we want to make sure that when we are looking at the loan options that we fully understand what we are signing on to, okay? So we have three options up here: the Federal Direct Loan, which is in the student's name, the Federal Direct Plus Loan, which is in the parent name, and then the private loans, which from various businesses, things like that. So, with an overview on this, because again, I know I'm talking primarily to kind of underclassmen, juniors, but right, with this, we want to know whose name is it in. Is it in my name or is it in the parent's name, meaning student, right? Is it subsidized and unsubsidized? Subsidized means the government is taking care of the interest while the student is in school. Unsubsidized means it starts accruing interest right away, okay? Are there limits? So with the Federal Direct Loan, the student loan, there are limits on that. The freshman year, it's $5,500. Sophomore year, it's $6,500. Junior, senior, it's $7,500, right? For the Plus Loan, this one you need a credit check, right? For some private loans, you may need a cosigner, right? Do we want to make sure we understand all of the obligations, right? All of the details on it before we just say yeah, I need that loan, let's go, right? So again, I'm not going to go too far into this one, but again, if you have questions, you can always contact us, talk to us, right? And then again, we have a financial aid night, usually for seniors, that we go a little bit more in depth into these things. But again, just making sure we ask questions and understand what we're doing here. Okay, let's talk about the FAFSA. So the FAFSA is the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That's what it stands for. The first word is free. You should never pay to file the FAFSA. There were some websites floating around out there where you would file the FAFSA and then it'd be like, pay us $49.99. No, you did a good practice, but that's not the real thing, right? So we want to make sure we're filing the right FAFSA. What the FAFSA does, it takes in a lot of information and eventually spits out a number called the EFC, the Expected Family Contribution. It's kind of going through a name change right now. It's going to be eventually called the Student Aid Index. They're the same thing. So this number, they take in parent income and assets, student income and assets, how many in the household are in college, what's the oldest age of a member of the household, right? All sorts of things into a big long math equation, right? And it spits out this number. And people tend to freak out about this number because the name says expected family contribution. People think, oh, that's the money I'm going to have to pay. It's not what it is. That's why they're going through a name change. So this number, what it does, it gets sent to the different financial aid offices that your student is applying to, and that number helps them figure out what financial aid to offer you, right? So it's not a number saying you need to pay this money, right? It's a number to figure out your financial aid offers. Okay, so when you file the FAFSA, it's okay. Don't freak out, right? So that number really does help with the financial aid offers, and again, we can help you with that process. We can help you file the FAFSA, figuring out the financial aid, all of that. So again, some notes on the FAFSA. Some of this will not apply to you, especially if you do not have a senior. If you have a senior right now, right, the FAFSA, you first file the FAFSA the senior year of high school, okay? So the year before you start the actual degree or program, okay? So if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, you don't have to worry about this yet. But every year, October 1st, the FAFSA opens. If you're a senior and you file before October 1st, you filed the wrong FAFSA. Okay? So, October 1st, you're going to need tax information. I'm not sure why that's looking weird, sorry. But you're going to need tax information. Alright, so the easy way to figure this out is you take your student's grad year. So I'm just going to use seniors right now because I know I'm talking to a lot of grad years. But seniors graduate in 2023, we subtract 2, we're going to need 2021 tax information. Okay, so whatever your grad year is, right, take 2 away, that's the tax information you're going to need for that first FAFSA. And then every year you file the FAFSA, you just add on a tax year, right? Again, not sure what's going on here at the bottom, but the priority deadline for the FAFSA is April 15th, okay? Speaking as a procrastinator, that's a big window of procrastination. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are getting that in sooner rather than later. The reason is that just because Indiana has a state priority of April 15th, colleges and universities may have a sooner deadline, okay? The other thing, a lot of this money, all that money we just talked about, the grants, the scholarships, the loans, all that stuff, some of it is first come, first serve. So if you do not get that FAFSA in sooner rather than later, you may miss out on money. If you miss the college deadline, you may not get a college scholarship, right? If you don't file by April 15th, chances are they've run out of grant money. So, again, try them sooner rather than later, senior year, right? We usually suggest by winter break is like a good deadline to file that FAFSA. So, again, if you have more questions about the FAFSA, let me know. We can talk a little bit more about it later. See, I don't know what happened here. Okay, let's talk about managing college costs. So there are ways to limit these costs. First of all, taking AP and dual credit classes in high school are a really great way to set those off. You're getting some of those like entry-level college classes out of the way and saving some time and money in the long run. Commuting versus living on campus. And I'm not sure who I'm less popular with in this situation, the students or the parents. But if you can save money by living off campus and living at home, do it. Right? In the next slide, we're going to talk about how much room and board costs. It's a pretty hefty price tag. And then finally, taking summer and online courses. These are a really great way to save money. Usually these are cheaper than in-person classes like you go to 3 times a week. And again, if you're trying to get out sooner than 4 years, right, taking summer and online courses might be an option for you. All right, now let's talk about those numbers. So if you go to a college or university and go to their financial aid website, all of them have what is called a net price calculator. So that net price calculator, what it does is it shows you that university's cost of attendance. So this is their tuition and fees, this is their room and board, and then they give you some estimates. So books, travel expenses, etc. Okay? Then they're going to ask you some questions, and they're going to give you an estimate of free money. So what you may qualify for grants and scholarships, they're going to take that off of their total. Then that gives you your net price. So that net price is what you and your family, your student, right, have to figure out how to pay for. Whether that's with loans, with outside scholarships, with savings, with 529s, what have you, that's that price that you're going to have to figure out how to cover. So we're going to go through an example here. So this is a student that is from a middle to low income household. They have above average GPA, above average test scores. This is an example of a public university in Indiana, Purdue, IU, or Ball State. Okay? So first we have the tuition and fees and the room and board. Again, room and board for $12,000, okay? And then we have some estimates, books and supplies, transportation, for an overall total of $27,200 for a year, okay? This student qualified for the Pell Grant, which is a federal grant, the Franco-Bannon State Grant, and then the college and universities kicked in $3,500 for a total of $11,000 gift aid. That is money we do not have to pay back. That's the good money, right? Which brings our total down to $16,200, okay? Then this student was offered the federal work study, which is that part-time job on campus, and then they got a loan, partially subsidized, partially unsubsidized, which brings our total down to $7,700. I know I personally don't have a check for $7,000, right? So this is where we have to evaluate what we can do next. Did your student do their job and look for scholarships and qualify for like $5,000 worth of scholarships? That brings that down to $2,700, a little bit more manageable, right? If your student doesn't have to live on campus, that takes off $12,000, right? We're in the negatives now. So there's lots of different things to evaluate here instead of just saying, oh, I need a loan for $7,700, right? If we're doing our steps and we're making sure we're trying to do everything we can to limit those costs, right? Hopefully we're not taking as much loans, right, than we really need to. So, good example there. Okay, my last thing, we're going to talk about social media. So, social media is just the life we're in now. It is everywhere. So, some tips. Have appropriate social media handles, profiles, emails, right? Especially that email when you're going to have to email colleges, scholarships, things like that. Have an email that is a professional one with just the name at the server, right? I created my first email when I was like late elementary, early middle school, and it's embarrassing. I don't want to say it out loud, right? So make sure it's something that is going to look professional, right? As far as the social media, you want to make sure you're being engaging, you're being personal, post about your extracurriculars, your volunteer hours, your friends, your family, whatever, right? Paint a good picture of yourself. We want to remove anything that is inappropriate, anything that could be misinterpreted, right? Making sure that we're portraying ourselves in that good light. A note, even if it says it's private, internet is forever, right? So Instagram stories that are private or Snapchat or whatever, right? You do not know who's getting those pictures, those videos. You just want to be careful with that. So, some studies asking scholarship reviewers, college admissions, employers if they check social media, the overwhelming answer is yes, they do. That bottom one, the employers, is always very shocking to me. 90% consider social media accounts during the hiring process. 79% reject candidates based on what they post. That's huge, right? When I got this job, they checked my social media, they told me, right? So, you want to make sure that we're being careful about that. It's just the world we live in now, and it's just something we got to be aware about. Right? So, here's some proof that they're checking. A couple years ago, there was a story that Harvard rescinded applications or rescinded admittance letters to 10 students because of what they found online. Coach Lawson over there on the left, that is a D1 coach, dropped 15 recruits based on what he saw on Twitter. This one at the bottom makes me laugh, but like not for a good reason. This time in 2 weeks, I'll have my nails done, back in the sunbeds, and gone shopping spree, loving life, # student loan. That's not what your student loans are for, right? And if they are able to connect that back to you, they could take back your money, right? So we want to be careful about what we're posting because there could be some serious repercussions in the future. Just want to be careful. Okay, I just gave you a ton of information in like 45 minutes. So I know it could be very overwhelming, this whole process. So we're here to help. We are a completely free service, no fees, no charges, anything like that. Our number is all over all of our stuff, on the back of the guide, on the bottom of the worksheets. You can call us, you can email us, we will help you with whatever part of the process you need help on. On our website, we have this really great thing called the College Planning Toolbox. It is a one-stop shop to have all of this stuff in one place, right? Calendars, scholarship search tools, reviewing school options, all of those sorts of things, right, on the website, just there to have it all in one place. It's a really good tool. So if you go to our website, up in the very top it says resources. I brought some of these worksheets with you today, the scholarship search question, the college search questions, but we have some other ones, especially when you get to senior year and you're creating the FAFSA and doing all that stuff. We have some worksheets there. Oh, I messed up. We have social media, so it's a good place to follow us and make sure you know when we're going to be back here, and maybe even just like you see us and we're like, oh yeah, I got to send them that question, right? Good place to follow us. And there's our number and our email again. So, okay. Questions? Again, I know it was a lot. Okay, I have a favor to ask. Can I take a picture? My boss likes us to take pictures to prove that we were here. So, I'm going to take a picture. What I ask is that you hold up the guide, right? The big glossy guide that you have. Don't cover up your face. I know that trick. Right? See if I can get everybody. So hold up the guide, big smiling faces. We enjoyed my presentation. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Okay, so you can come up and talk to me if you have a little bit more personal question, but thank you very much for listening. And yeah, let us know. Oh, last thing, survey. There was a survey that you might have picked up at the front. If you could just fill that out for me really quickly and then just drop it back up on the front table, that'd be awesome. If you didn't get the sign-in sheet, I know it kind of floated around, you can come back up and sign on the sign-in sheet. But yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, totally fine. Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. Oh, thank you. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, something happened.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So my suggestion is even if you don't think you're going to qualify, still right? And even with the FAFSA and the college, like if you might not qualify for federal or state grants, but the college will still give you this option, right? So it's like even if I'm not sure exactly what the cutoff is, but the team might know, but but even if you don't think you may qualify,